Hello and welcome to another Tower of the Exalted Battle Report. This is a 75-point game featuring Makeda3 versus Skarre1. We are playing the pit scenario from Steamroller. And here we are with the Scorn deployment, going from left to right. There is a Titan Gladiator, a unit of Annihilators are stretched across the center. There is a Bronzeback Titan. There is Makeda3 with her Exalted Court off over to the right, flanking Makeda3. A Titan Sentry, Optimus Marketh, Makeda3 himself, with a unit of Pangiver Beast Handlers. They are a maximum sized unit, and a Mortar Thurge Willbreaker in the back. On to the Crix deployment. Kind of going also from left to right, we have a unit of Statixis Raiders with a UA. There is a Leviathan and Seether. There's a Skarlock Thrall in the back behind there. Pirate Queen Scar is up front. There's a unit of Necrosurgeons. There is a unit of Blood Witches with the UA. Also, kind of next to the Necrosurgeon, there is a Statixis Raider Captain. There is a Death Ripper, and Deathjack is manning up the front in the AD line. On to Scorn turn 1. As is kind of normal, things just run up. The Titan Gladiator puts on Rush, slams through that rubble towards the Leviathan. Everything pretty much, like I said, just keeps running up. Makeda threw up Rush onto the Titan Sentry, who ran up into those woods. Makeda moved off over to the right just to kind of stare down Deathjack. Makeda put Vortex of Destruction on herself, and that was pretty much about it. So Crix turn 1. Again, we saw a little bit much more of a cautious advance here. Not really a whole lot of shooting. The Blood Witches kind of spread out a little bit, meaning for pretty much the Annihilators to crash into them, probably the rest of my army to advance, and then him try to overwhelm me. The Death Ripper moved up, I think probably to prevent Makeda from charging into Deathjack, but with pre-measuring, one thing that I noticed is that I was able to engage the Death Ripper with Makeda3's 2-inch melee weapons and still remain out of Deathjack's threat range, which was pretty significant. One thing also that happened during this turn, it wasn't anything until I noticed afterwards, but one of the things that Skarre1 likes to do is to actually, it happens a little bit later. Actually, part of the feat. My apologies for any sort of confusion. So, Scorn turn 2. This basically saw me running up and engaging a little bit, trying to make sure I stay out of the majority of like Deathjack's threat, the Slayer's threat. I wasn't really worried about too much of the infantry. So I moved up the Annihilators just a little bit. They killed off a couple of the Raiders who were in the zone. Makeda walked up a bit. He took out the Arkno, the little Death Ripper, completely. And you know, like I said in the earlier picture, I was out of Deathjack's threat range, so I was feeling pretty safe, pretty good. Makeda3 upkept Vortex of Destruction, kind of walked up a little bit. On the Annihilator, kind of directly to the right of the Bronzeback, I put up Hand of Death on it, just because of realizing that there's going to be a swarm of infantry that's probably going to be coming in. He would be able to get some sweet overtake and berserk moves as long as he kept hitting. So yeah, that was really about all here. So Crix turn 2 are, yeah. So Crix turn 2. This was Scar's feat turn. One thing that I started talking about earlier, but it actually more applies to this turn. Scar's feat is similar but different. So the +5 strength and armor applies to a single model that she can put out in her control area, but for every model that she chooses to get that bonus, she takes a point of damage. So when she moved up, she popped her feet, she allocated some to the Leviathan. She put it out on a couple Blood Witches, Deathjack herself, and a couple of the Styxis Raiders for a total of 6 damage. And then the Necrosurgeon went over to heal her through the Necrosurgery special action. It was something that happened a lot in Mark II. Unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore because Necrosurgery only heals models that are undead, which is, you know, nothing we realized at the time. It wasn't only until I was prepping for this battle report that I noticed. He also put the Sea Raider Captain kind of right in between Deathjack and Skarre. That model specifically kind of put a thought into my head. So of possibly trying to clear out those Blood Witches, having Makeda3 charge into Deathjack, sidestepping over and getting to Skarre. But more onto what Crix was doing. It was pretty much trying to jam me out from getting to his battle group, really. He tried very, very hard to kill the Annihilator that had Hand of Death with the 3 shots from the Leviathan that he got. He boosted 2 of them. One of the Exalted Court ended up shield guarding it. So did the Titan Sentry, and the last shot he missed with. So not only did, you know, he was able to not kill the target that he wanted, but he also gave Makeda and the Exalted Court battle driven for the turn, which was kind of unfortunate for him, but very fortunate for myself. So as we will see onto Scorn turn 3. So this was a bit of a plan to kind of get here. Looking into the photo, you're like, where did everything go? So what happened is pretty much Makeda's feet turn happened, really. So first thing I wanted to do, part of the reason why Adeptus Markath is in this list is to get off double extra movement from Eliminator. However, one thing I realized that after I used Eliminator on Markath, he killed a few of the raiders kind of off towards the left that were grouped up a little bit, kind of towards that obstruction. Is that Eliminator now states that the plus 2 inches of movement for every model that dies from the spell in the 3-inch AoE, the spellcaster gets to move 2 inches for everyone that dies, not, you know, quote, this model, which in Mark II allowed Makeda to move from it. I didn't realize that until afterwards, so this is probably the last time you're going to see Markath in this list, because that was his and the Annihilator's entire point, was Annihilators were going to kind of jam up, feed Markath's souls so I can get off, you know, extra Eliminator movements. But now that that's no longer a thing, you know, we're just going to kind of adapt and move on from it. But as you can see here, the Bronzeback and the Annihilators just went nuts into the Blood Witches. Makeda ended up charging one of the... Oh, I'm sorry. They went off to the left over against the Styxis Raiders. Makeda herself charged off into a Blood Witch, ended up killing one, casting Hand of Death on herself, and then just started carving through all of the Blood Witches. I think one was left alive, one kind of off to the far right, near the Exalted Court model, but it was ridiculous. And so once I had the path clear for Makeda, he charged into Deathjack, hit him, sidestepped, went into the Raider Captain, hit her, sidestepped into Skarre, That took him no fury to do, um, because the one fury that he used for charging, he ended up removing after he killed the Raider captain. So he had 4 furies, so it was basically buying 2 attacks, boosting to hit, needing 9s to hit, and being on dice -5 because Scar at this point was at basically stats of 16-20 with no focus to overboost with. So hitting on 9s at dice -5, probably not the best plan considering I only would have 2 attacks. But he did have some damage left over from the feat. So between that and I was doing about, I think I did pretty well as far as damage goes. So it was about 6 to 7 damage each hit. And Scar only has 16 health boxes. So I was able to kill her. It was very dicey. Probably, I think if I were to do it over again, one thing I might try to orchestrate would be for Makeda to actually cast Hand of Death on herself, have her kind of overtake and chop her way through all the Blood Witches, until she was able to orchestrate a way so that she was engaging Deathjack and killing another Blood Witch, which wouldn't be too hard considering how jammed up they all were. So that when she was engaging both, kind of killing one, and then swapping upkeeps over to Vortex of Destruction, and maybe charging Mullet Karnan with PAL 15, 4 dice on a on Deathjack, who, I mean, granted, was at armor 24, so it would be at dice -9. So you're figuring 6 attacks, dice -9, probably about 5 damage each. It's a little dicey, but I think it had a chance of killing Deathjack. And then once that was there, might have been safe enough to just kind of keep going from that point, especially after potentially Makeda dominating the zone. But I don't know. It's all kind of changing from there. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the game. Again, it was another another good kind of quick turn 3 victory for Skarre1. I don't see this kind of like continuing as a trend. We're still in kind of like the mad scientist phase of learning the new edition, and people are just kind of throwing lists together and seeing what happens. But anyways, so thank you very much, and I shall be back with more.